Hey folks, John Covington. Today we want to talk a little bit about a small group that we've developed and we're using the new book as a resource. But before I do, I got sort of a little bit of a funny story. We used to sponsor midshipmen years ago at the Naval Academy, and they've all grown up and they've started having babies. And one of them is a subscriber. One of the midshipmen is a subscriber to this YouTube channel, and his 8-year-old son was taking a look at it and said, you need to tell Mr. Covington that he needs to, every video, tell folks to subscribe to the YouTube channel. So, taking the advice of an 8-year-old marketing guru, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and click that subscribe button. We'd love to get more subscriptions. Anyway, our lesson, we have 12 lessons that we've made an agenda with the book, and we meet every Wednesday morning from 7 to 8. And so we had already had a couple lessons, and we were fixed to get into the meat of the book. This is after everyone's made their introductions and we've made nice and everything. Actually starting to get into the meat of the book. And the meat of the book we were getting into was to look at the answer to the question that I asked many of my black friends at the beginning, and that is, if you could snap your fingers and make it happen, what would you want white men to understand about racism? And the intent for this particular lesson was to go through and look at those different answers and say, well, what do you think? Is that reality? Is that true? And we get about 30 seconds into it, and this guy, one of our guys, takes the book and he shoves it to the middle of the table. He says, all this is garbage. He said, all this racism stuff is politically motivated, and it's stirred up by the media, and it's just a bunch of garbage. And he goes off on about a 5-minute rant. And so I'm thinking, gosh, this isn't starting off the way I'd like to have it start off. Then one of the other guys, who is the plant manager of a large facility here in Tuscaloosa, he said, yeah, and he goes over a union negotiating situation that he had several years ago at his plant that quickly turned racial. And awful names, he was called awful names. They brought in some workers from Stillman College, which is a predominantly black college, and that was a nasty situation as those young men men and women got off the bus to come work. And so it was just a nasty situation, and it finally got resolved. And my friend could have just said, well, okay, the contract's signed, this is all over, I'm going to let it die. Well, he didn't let it die. He appointed a group, or actually had recommendations of a group of blacks and whites to come together, a small group, to discuss racial tension in the plant. And part of what he did was he tried to go through and pick up some misconceptions in the conversations that people have. And one of the perceptions is that there are just, if you were to go up to many black people and say, how many blacks each year are killed who are unarmed by police officers? And you'll get hundreds, thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of a number as an answer. The actual number is 12. The point is the dialogue does not line up with the facts. So now there's a little bit of a dilemma beginning to form. And the dilemma is, on one hand, I want to be empathetic to people that are not like me. But on the other hand, I want to be truthful. And if I'm truthful, at least I have some self-integrity that I'm not fostering a lie. And if I'm empathetic, I need to be empathetic to my fellow human beings. So there's a little bit of a dilemma there. And the group noticed that. And that's one of the things that we're going to flesh out over the next 10 weeks is this dilemma. It's very interesting. We got around, we have one 25-year-old black guy in our group. He was a former football player at Alabama. a very self-confident young man. And it comes around at his time to talk, and he looks this guy who did the little rant, and he says, I really appreciate what you said. I appreciate your passion, and I appreciate the way you said it, and I agree with some of what you had to say. And then he says, you know something? He says, the enemy of racism is relationships. I thought that was pretty profound. And that's where I'm going to sort of leave this this video today, is I thought that Donnie's remark that relationships kill racism was pretty profound. And we're having a ball in the group. Fortunately, this group had been together before, and so one stress-causing incident certainly was not going to throw everything off the rails. So anyway, one thing I'd like to encourage you to do is to have ponder yourself starting a small group and just open the dialogue, have the conversation, and begin to talk about begin to address the topic. And that's how we're going to put a dent in this thing. So anyway, thank you for listening, and see you next week.